Welcome. Today we're going to talk about 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Bergman, which is about having 4,000 weeks to live and what you're going to do with it, how you're going to do it well, stuff like that. Before we do that, a few ways to support the channel. You can become a member at curtismchale.ca/membership. You get my courses, you get paid newsletter, you get discounts on future coaching. So that would be a good way to do it. Buckle up, let's talk about the only weeks you have to live, 4,000 of them. One of the things that this reminded me of initially, right away, was the Wait But Why site when they have like a week, what they call it, a life weeks calendar, where it says stuff like, oh, by the time you have finished high school, you've spent 80% of the time you'll ever spend with your parents. And you think, whoa, that's a big thing to think about. And there's a bunch of stuff like that in that calendar where you realize, wow, I don't have as much time as I thought, or time has gone faster than I thought. And while this book is designed to help pull you up short so that you do live your life well, it is not designed to help you like crank more widgets faster or to get more done necessarily. It's actually in many ways to help you step back, get less done, focus better on what you should be doing instead. One of the interesting points early on is that life is like a conveyor belt where we're always trying to keep up with the Joneses, keep up with someone who's ahead of us. But the thing is, as we run that belt, as we finally catch up to that person, that other thing, that accomplishment, the next thing we do is find the next thing, actually. And we just keep running on that belt farther and farther because there's never actually an end in sight. Another big point they make is that hours is a bad measure of your productivity. How many hours you spent in your chair doesn't actually matter, especially in a knowledge economy where like one idea is huge. Can be huge for your business, can be huge for you, and where our brain power is much different than our physical ability to do things, right? From the Industrial Revolution, we started purchasing time instead of finished products, and that really led owners to believe, or everyone to believe, that we need to wring as much as possible out of every hour, lest we, be seen as frivolous. And owners wanted to do that so they could get as much out of people as they could. And while, lifting stuff, doing physical labor, this is possible. It's not really possible in a mental knowledge work economy. You have 4, maybe 5 hours of good mental energy in your day, and then you're just done, right? That's it. All you can do after that is, do the basic cranking of widgets, answer some emails, do some tidying. Like that's all you can do after that. So measuring how many hours you spent in the office is a bad measure of if you did anything worthwhile at all. Another good thing to remember when you look at the hours is that your plan for the day is simply a statement of intent of how you hope the day will go. The day is under no obligation to comply. But we never recognize that, or it's very hard for us to recognize that, which is why, when my kids come in my office, I feel annoyed because I'm in the middle of this thing I thought I would be doing. But life happens, so just chill out a little bit. It's okay. And if you're a manager, if you're a boss, just life happens. Your people are going to be way happier if you just chill out a little bit. Another great idea is that we need to forget productivity hacks. I know from my YouTube channel, what people really want to see, what they respond, what they watch most is task manager reviews, note-taking tool reviews. That's what they want to know. They don't want to learn about the process, unfortunately, but that's way more important because even if you switch tools, you take your same broken process to the next tool. That's not what people want to hear. They want to say some tool is going to fix things magically for me. We see a similar tool focus from generations past, right? The introduction of a laundry, dishwashers didn't actually reduce or give more time to mainly women at the time. Probably still mainly women, unfortunately, but didn't give more time to people. It merely said, hey, now that we can keep our laundry and our dishes clean easier, we will do more. We will keep up with the next level of Joneses, the next people that keep their house even tidier. And so it just created more work. You didn't get any more time because why would we ever sit down and have some leisure? That's not okay. Leisure cannot be good in and of itself. It's only good because it lets us rest for work the next day, which is false. Leisure is good in and of itself. And this is where productivity hacks and tools fall into the same category. Most of them are, sure, they might help you get a little more done, but it's not like you have more time after it. Either your boss or often you just make you do more work. You say, oh, I have these other things I can do now, and you keep jumping into the next thing instead. And you do that in part because we focus on middling priorities. We focus on things that are, sure, they're important, they're valuable, but they're not actually the most valuable. So the author says to write down your top 20 things and then throw out 15. I might even throw out 17, 16 of them. Don't even, you cannot do these things at all because they are middling priorities. There are things that will feel productive in the time, but really aren't pushing your life forward and aren't accomplishing your big goals. Your big goals are those top 3, 4, 5 things. That's it. Everything else is just a waste. Don't spend any time on it at all. Another thing Oliver Bergman recommends is to limit your work in progress. There's a great book called Personal Kanban that really talks about this well. I think it does a better job than he does in this book. He just says limit your work in progress, but Personal Kanban has like a whole structure around it. So I will link to at least audio on YouTube above, or if you look in the show notes below, you'll actually see a link directly to the written version of that Personal Kanban review. Another thing Bergman recommends is to live in the moment, to really experience that. And this is something I've been struggling with lately. My kids come home from school. I take care of them a couple days a week is my job because my wife's out doing things as opposed to my wife's job because, I'm working and she's, there for the kids. And I have been finding lately that I have been focused too much on getting things done, some other work I could do instead of hanging out with my kids, even if the work is baking, right? I got to bake quick. And the kids are like, hey, my 5 and 7-year-old, they're like, can I help? And I'm like, no, you're just in the way. And instead, I've been trying to work on focusing on them and really spending time with them instead, and not worrying so much about whether it's the maximal productive, like did I get as much baking done as fast as possible? Did I spend time with them? Because what they're going to remember is that I spent time with them, not that I washed the car or did these other things. They're going to remember that I spent time with them. That's important to them. So since reading this book, I've been a lot more purposeful about that, about spending time purposefully and in the moment with my kids and actually focusing on them and their needs at that time, because it's just better. One of the other big final points that Bergman makes is that commitments aren't bad. We have this idealized philosophy or view that our time is our time and we should have it free of all other commitments. But the truth is that it's commitments and time with other people specifically that really make life worth living. So I think of this as I look at the cross-country team that I coach across the street. From September to October, I help coach at the grade school. And yes, that eats up a bunch of time at nights. It takes hours out of my workday multiple times a week. But I look at that as some of the most valuable time I spend over at the school in the year. Coming back to the kids, even yesterday, one of the kids was like, hey, Curtis, I did this run yesterday and it was so good. And they were so ecstatic about, honestly, running around the block, which is great for them. And getting that joy throughout the entire year of having them come up to me and saying hi to me and telling me about some cool thing they did, that is far more valuable long-term than, an extra hour of work could have been. So Bergman ends with 5 big questions that I really like and that I will be putting into my yearly review system, my yearly review plan. If you want to watch that video, subscribe and you'll see that video coming up more beginning of January-ish. The first question is, where in your life or work are you currently pursuing comfort when it's called for is a little discomfort? To me, when I look at that, it's where am I choosing not to dive into some project because it would be hard. This might even be saying I'm not doing one of my top 5 priorities because they're actually going to be hard and require work. I'm picking one of those middling priorities. That's another good way that you could be pursuing comfort instead of really diving in. Number 2 is, are you holding yourself to and judging yourself by standards of productivity or performance that are impossible to meet? And often the answer is, yeah, you probably are. Your boss might be doing this to you too, and I don't have a lot of advice if your boss is doing it, but sorry. Number 3, in what ways have you yet to accept the fact that you are who you are and not the person you think you ought to be? This is a good question because there are things that I do well and there are things that I don't do well. And I think it's very easy for us to look at the highlight reel of someone else and say, oh, I'm going to be like that and I'm going to do those things and I want to be that type of person. When the truth is you're you and you're not that other person and there's things that you excel at that they are bad at. So dive into those things instead. Don't worry about the things you're bad at. Number 4, in which areas of life are you still holding back until you feel like you know what you're doing? Okay, I've been a programmer for more than a decade now, 12 years, and I honestly still find out basic things about WordPress, the system I use. There's things I'm I don't know what I'm doing here, and you just have to learn it. Totally cool. Most people around you don't know what they're doing immediately, and that's okay, and you need to just be okay with that. You know what you know, and you'll keep learning what you don't know. Number 5, how would you spend your days differently if you didn't care so much about seeing your actions reach fruition? This is a good thing. This is also where some of these books fall apart. Not this one, but the next book I'll be reviewing, Time Off, I think falls apart here. like I could say if it didn't matter what what the outcome of my work was, then I'd probably read more. I'd go bikes more. Like I'd do these other things that didn't directly produce income, because honestly, these videos are like my least watched ones, but I find them the most valuable to me, so I keep doing them. And that's great in theory, but at the same time, I gotta eat. Like I have to eat. So what am I gonna do? I think it's good to know what you'd spend your time doing if it didn't matter. If money was an object, if it didn't matter, if it like panned out or anything, but don't fall into the trap of saying, hey, I'm just going to do that then, or some rich famous person, because honestly, a lot of this, here's this rich person, here's what they do all the time, you too could be rich. No, they have money, they don't have to worry about anything you have to worry about, so they can do whatever they want, because the money doesn't matter. So I think that's a good one to hold in tension, and something to at least know that where, just to guide you where you want to go. Like, are you building a life that actually lets you answer number 5? If it didn't matter, like, are you building a life that lets you spend more time doing those things? Finally, should you read 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Bergman? I'm going to say yes. I think that if this had hit me at a different time in my reading about productivity life, then I think I would have said, well, this is foundational and revolutionary and it's amazing. And I don't think I found that today, because there's a lot of stuff that I have already known before, that I've read before, read in other books. But it's still a really good book, and I think that someone else, if this is your first, I'm going to learn about productivity, and you came across this review because you heard this book was good, I think that you may find this book revolutionary. I think that you may find this book really something you want to dig into that's absolutely worthwhile. So I'm going to give it double thumbs up. Go for it. This is a good book to read. That's it. If you liked the video, thumbs up below. If you loved it, subscribe, hit the bell. YouTube will let you know something happened, like notifications. But honestly, turn off your YouTube notifications. Go read a book. Do something like that. If you want to support the channel, you can, or the best way really is to become a member, curtismchale.ca/membership, paid newsletter for some members, actually for all members. And then you get a discount if you get the paid newsletter on my courses, if you want to just one-time purchase them, or you can, be a course supporter and you get all my courses free, all my books are free, and you get the paid newsletter. And when I do coaching starting January-ish on doing research, you will also get a discount on that. Buckle up. Have a good one.